You think life on a pirate ship would feel like freedom? No king, no navy, no boss standing over your shoulder, just the open sea, a share of the treasure, and a pistol on your belt. That fantasy lasts right up until your first 10 minutes on board. The ship smells like wet wood, tar, sweat, old food, and something rotting somewhere below deck. The floor never stops moving. The air is thick. Men shout over the wind. Somebody slams a bucket into your hands before you even know where you're supposed to sleep. And that is when the truth hits you. You are not joining an adventure. You are entering a floating survival test. And if you had to spend 7 straight days on a real pirate ship during the Golden Age of Piracy, somewhere around 1715, there's a very good chance it would break you long before it killed you. Day 1 begins with disappointment. You probably imagined a dramatic arrival. Black flags, swaggering outlaws, maybe a toast with rum. What you actually get is work, immediate work. Pirate ships ran on labor, and every extra body had to earn its place fast. There are sails to handle, ropes to coil, deck planks to scrub, weapons to maintain, and water to haul. If you're not useful, you're a burden, and burdens don't get much sympathy at sea. You also discover something movies usually leave out. There's almost no privacy anywhere. A pirate ship is crowded. Men sleep packed together in tight spaces, with barely enough room to stretch out. On some ships, hammocks are shared in shifts. On others, you're sleeping wherever there's room, wedged beside strangers, equipment, or cargo. At night, the ship creaks, men cough, someone snores like a dying animal, and the whole wooden world rolls beneath you. So congratulations! Your dream life of freedom has started with manual labor, zero personal space, and a sleeping arrangement that feels like public transportation during a storm. And this is still the easy day. By day 2, food becomes your next problem. You might think pirates spent their time feasting on stolen luxuries. Sometimes they did take good food from captured ships. But most days, especially once they'd been at sea a while, meals were repetitive, stale, and sometimes disgusting. Salted meat, dried peas, hard biscuit, maybe cheese if you were lucky, maybe not. And that biscuit? It could last for months. Which sounds efficient until you remember that months at sea also belong to mold, moisture, and insects. Sailors and pirates often found weevils in their food, and by a certain point, picking them out was more effort than it was worth. You were hungry, so you ate. Then there was the water. Fresh water stored in barrels did not stay fresh for long. It could turn slimy, foul-smelling, and full of things you would rather not think about while drinking. Sometimes weak beer or diluted rum was actually more pleasant than the water itself. So no, the pirate fantasy is not drinking rum on deck at sunset. It is more like choosing between dehydration and barrel-flavored swamp liquid. And remember, you're doing all this while the ship never stops moving. By day 3, lack of sleep starts doing real damage. Because even if you do manage to lie down, the ship keeps rolling, the air below deck stays foul, and your body never fully relaxes. Watches divide the crew's time. Duties continue day and night. If the weather changes, if a sail needs adjusting, if danger appears, sleep is over. No discussion. This is where a modern person starts to crack. You are tired, sore, underfed, slightly dehydrated, and constantly surrounded by noise. Your hands are blistered from rope work. Your back hurts. Your clothes are stiff with sweat and salt. Your skin is starting to itch. Every simple task has become harder because you're doing it on a moving surface while exhausted. And the men around you, they are not there to protect your feelings. Some pirate crews were surprisingly democratic compared to Navy ships. Captains could be elected. Loot could be divided by agreed shares. There were often rules about compensation for injuries. But do not confuse that with softness. A pirate ship still depended on obedience in dangerous moments. If you failed when it mattered, you endangered everyone. So by the 3rd day, you're learning an important lesson. Pirates didn't survive because they were carefree rebels. They survived because they worked in a brutal environment that punished weakness immediately. Day 4 is when the ship becomes less of a workplace and more of a biological threat. This is the part nobody daydreams about. You are trapped in heat, dampness, and filth with dozens of other men. Clothes are rarely clean, bodies are rarely clean, bedding is rarely clean. Rats may be present, fleas may be present, lice may absolutely be present. If someone is sick, everyone notices. If someone is injured, infection is a real danger. A splinter, a cut, bad food, rotten teeth, fever, stomach illness. None of these are small problems when you're days from land. And let's talk about smell. At this point, the ship smells worse than it did on day 1, but now you've become part of the smell. You're sweating into the same clothes. The bilge below deck stinks. The cooking area adds smoke and grease. Buckets and basic sanitation do not create what we would call a healthy environment. If you romanticize piracy after this, your imagination is doing some truly heroic work. And yet the worst part may be psychological. Because by now, you finally understand something terrifying. You cannot just leave. There is no stepping outside for air. No driving home. No quitting in the morning. No shower waiting for you. The sea surrounds you in every direction, and that wooden ship, miserable as it is the only thing between you and drowning. Day 5 brings weather. You may have thought the ocean looked beautiful from shore. From the deck of a crowded pirate ship in rough water, it looks like a machine designed to erase you. Wind snaps through the rigging, waves hammer the hull. The deck turns slick and dangerous. Loose objects become hazards. Climbing, hauling, balancing, everything becomes more dangerous at once. And here is the lovely part. Storms do not care how tired you are. If something must be secured, you secure it. If sails must be handled, you help handle them. If you slip, if a rope burns through your hands, if a spar swings wrong, if water smashes across the deck at the wrong moment, you can be injured fast. Or thrown. This is probably the point where your pirate fantasy officially dies. Not in battle, not in some glorious last stand. But while cold, exhausted, terrified, and clinging to wet wood, wondering why freedom feels so much like unpaid overtime in hell. Then, on day 6, the real reason pirate ships existed returns to the center of everything. Another sail appears on the horizon. Now the mood changes instantly. Maybe it's a merchant ship. Maybe it's prey. Maybe it's a warship, which is much worse. Either way, the crew becomes focused and dangerous. Weapons are checked, cannons are readied, orders come faster. You don't get to be the nervous tourist anymore. You are part of this, whether you want to be or not. And if combat begins, everything gets louder, faster, and more chaotic than the fantasy ever promised. Cannons fire with shocking violence. Smoke fills the air. Wood splinters. Men shout. Pistols misfire. Blades come out when ships close in. One bad second can ruin a hand, an eye, a leg, or your entire future. Even if you are not killed, injury at sea is a nightmare. There are no sterile hospitals here. There is no comforting rescue team. There is pain, crude treatment, and the possibility that surviving the wound is only the beginning of your trouble. This is the strange truth about pirate life. The most cinematic part of it is also the part most likely to leave you broken. And then day 7 arrives. If you make it that far, you are no longer reacting like the person who boarded the ship. You move more carefully, you speak less, your body feels older, your stomach has adapted just enough to stop complaining every minute. You know where to stand. You know which sounds matter. You know that the romance is gone, and in a way that is the final test. Because surviving a pirate ship was not really about sword fighting or bravery in the storybook sense. It was about enduring constant discomfort without relief. Bad sleep, bad food, bad water, hard labor, noise, filth, fear, injury, crowding, weather. The knowledge that one mistake could throw you overboard, one sickness could weaken you, and one enemy ship could end everything. Piracy did attract men who wanted freedom, money, revenge, or a way out of ordinary life. Compared with some merchant or naval service, pirate crews could offer better shares and fewer beatings from officers. But that did not make pirate life easy. It only meant the alternatives were often miserable too. So would you survive on a pirate ship? Maybe for a day, possibly for two. By the third, most modern people would be begging to get off. By the seventh, even if you were still alive, the ship would probably have broken the version of you that stepped on board. And that may be the biggest myth piracy ever sold us. Not that it was glamorous, but that freedom without comfort, safety, or escape still feels like freedom at all.